called Kievan Rus, which was made. This knife was made between the 9th and the 13th century, and it was found with a metal detector. As you can see, it's got like heavy pitting and stuff, but it's got a nice thick blade. And what we're going to do is we're going to restore this. It's very rusty. It's been in the ground for hundreds of years. So my first thought when I got this was to grind this down and make it smooth like every other knife. And normally I would, but this particular knife, I like the way that it's got these raised areas. So rather than trying to grind it all down and sand it down and make it nice and smooth again, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to remove all the rust by giving it a soak in some vinegar, and then I'm gonna take some steel wool and I'm gonna clean it up, and I'm gonna see if we can get a nice silver shine to the metal, but still leave all these imperfections in the blade that shows its age. It almost looks like it was made like that, but time has made it this way. And once I get it like that and everything, I may blue the knife blade. I'm not sure. So I have to see what it looks like if after I clean it up and polish it and stuff. But another thing I want to do is I'm going to take a piece of either a piece of buffalo horn or a piece of ram's horn, and I'm going to make a new handle for it. Much like the one that would have been on it, which would have been either wood, horn, or bone, which are what's available from that time period. So we're gonna I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give this a soak, and we're gonna clean it up, and then I'll pick a video up as we go along, and we'll talk about what we did to get it back into a nice collectible knife that can be used and stuff like that. So this right here, again, it's an ancient Kievan Rus, which is pre-Russian, which would have been eventually the beginning of the name of Russia. It's an ancient knife from anywhere between the 9th and the 13th century. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start restoring this, and we're gonna keep this video from beginning to the end, all the way until it's a finished product, and see what it looks like and go through the steps on what it takes to get to that. Alright, so use some pretty aggressive grit sandpaper to knock it down a little bit. And it's just a matter of doing it like in layers, because you figure this thing's been in the ground 1,000 years. It's going to have a lot of rust and some pretty deep pitting, so you're not going to get all the pitting out. But I like the pitting on this particular blade because it shows a lot of character. Another thing I like about the design of this blade is it curves around. It comes down like a normal knife blade, but the tip, instead of it being rounded, it has come on a kind of a slope, kind of like it goes from one angle to another angle to a slope, which I think is pretty cool. So the next thing I want to do here now, I soaked it overnight in vinegar. It dissolved a lot of the rust in white vinegar. Now I'm just going to roughen it up with some good heavy grit sandpaper. You can see now that it's starting to get a little bit of the metal is starting to shine back through. Like that. Now, I'm going to take some blue and rust remover. You can use pretty much any rust remover in the auto pot store. You can make your own by making a paste with some baking soda and water and brushing it on with a toothbrush. You can actually make some rust remover with lemon and salt. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. But me, the type of person I am, I don't have a lot of patience. I want to see results. Unfortunately, with something like this, there's nearly not a quick way of doing it. I picked this particular blade to do because of the thickness of it. A lot of these old ancient knives will be so thin that they're probably not going to be enough steel left in it to be able to really do anything. The next thing I'm gonna do is just take a regular wire brush this stuff in. Just like that. Get it all down inside all the little pores and everything. Get down inside all those little pits. And it's something that you don't see a lot of. I guess a lot of people would take these ancient knives and keep them the way they're found. But I just think it's kind of cool to be able to bring something like this back and make a handle for it and repurpose it, restore it so it can be used again. Plus, 1,000 years of rust is a hell of a challenge when it comes to removing rust. And I'm up for that kind of challenge. After I get done with this knife, I've got a couple of more knives that I'm going to be doing, and we're going to be making buffalo horn handles for them. And they're the types of knives that have a handle that's metal that have pins in the handle. Also, after doing this one, I'm going to be doing a hatchet. So you want to stay tuned for that video. I've got this old antique hatchet that's got rivets in the blade of the hatchet. It's very heavy. Looks like pretty much an old homemade handle. And this is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to restoring this. Because this one right here, it's settled right here on the handle. I'm going to cut this off. We're going to wedge it, glue it. We're going to refinish this handle a little bit, not too much, because I kind of like the patina on it. And I'm going to sand this down and get this back shiny again, because I've never seen a hatchet that had rivets in the blade. Because you can see these two pieces converge together, and it's got rivets. They go all the way through. I think that's somewhat unusual. So I'm gonna regrind and reshape the edge of the blade right there, and sand this all down and everything. So this is gonna be another video, but I'm not gonna be like I used to be, where I'd have 5 or 6 projects going at one time. I'm gonna do this knife, and then we'll do the hatchet, and then we'll do another knife. And I've got another old butcher knife. I'm gonna do a whole series of videos on removing rust and restoring old knives and hatchets, tomahawk, stuff like that. So basically, now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wash this off with some water and soap, dry it up, come back in here, sand on it some more, wire brush it some more, put some more rust remover on it. And I'm going to keep doing that until all the rust is gone. And then we'll steel wool it, and polish the blade and everything, and get it all sharpened up and everything. It's got some pits that are in the very bottom edge of the blade that I'm going to have no other choice but to grind that out and run this through a sharpener to get a nice new edge on it. Because right now it's bumpy. Doesn't have that smooth flow, so I can't keep that edge, if you can see it. It's got some pits that are along the bottom edge that are going to have to be ground out. So we'll go ahead on and do this over and over and over again until we got a nice shiny blade, and then we're going to make a horn handle out of ram's horn. So that's where we're at right now. I'm just going to keep on rocking away at it, kicking ass on it. All right. So once you get down and you get down a lot of that pitting and you've done a lot of rust removal and sanding, you're going to start noticing that you're going to have pieces missing out of the thinner part of your blade. Each one's a little different. So the only thing you can do with this is grind it down with a file or you know, or a grinder down to fucking where you got some good metal and create a new edge. And that's the only thing you're going to be able to do with that. So each piece is a little different. Some are worse than others. Some you may even start and find out that you can't do anything with it. This is another one that I haven't started yet, and I can already see pieces missing on the edge. And it's also a little bit thinner at the bottom. So you're going to end up losing some of the blade. So you can either approach it one or two ways. You can take a bench grinder and grind it, or you can file it with a file. It's like a regular old file. Like that. Turn that bitch up on the edge like this and file it all the way down. Just file it back and forth like that until you get down to some good metal. That's going to take a lot longer, of course, but I think I'm going to use a bigger file and lay the file down and turn the knife down like this and just go back and forth across the file until I get it where I need it to be at. Let's see what we're going to get. So far, this is where we're at. You're not going to get all the pitting out of this blade. It's been in the ground for over 1,000 years. You know, it's like from the 2nd or 3rd century, probably. Maybe not that old. No newer than the 8th century. So it's been in the ground for a long time. You can see blade missing and shit like that. But go ahead on and start filing it down and try to keep the same profile. Do that and let's see where we get. All right. So right now I've kept my knife blade nice and dull. There's no sense in sharpening it, because if you do that in the middle of all that grinding and sanding and polishing and everything, you're going to cut yourself. And I'm just going to go ahead on now. I've made 2 different styles of knife handles. Just a template out of cardboard. I got that kind and this kind. Like that. So I think I'm going to go with that one right there. And I'm just going to use it as a template. As far as the blade itself, I've grinded all the imperfection out of the edge of the blade. And I've taken it down as far as I can to take those pits out. But as you can see, I just can't go any further, because if I do, it's going to jeopardize the blade. It's going to make it too thin. So right there gives it still a nice rustic look. It's got a reflection. I'm going to be able to polish that up really nice. And now I'm going to use my template. And I've got a piece of horn here. Well, I'll lay the template on there, and I'm going to cut that piece of horn out so I can make me a handle. So that's where we're at right now. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and take a Sharpie. I'm going to hold my template down, find me a nice grain, and I'm going to go ahead and draw that out on my horn. Just like that. Alright, so now I've got the outline of my handle drawn on the horn, right? So now I'm going to turn my template over to the other side and trace it that way. If I did it both sides, then if I did it on the same side, what I would get would be the inside of my horn on one side of my knife scale, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead on and trace that out. Alright. And I'm picking this part of the horn because I really like the wrinkling in the horn and stuff like that. So I'm going to hold it up there so you can get kind of a little bit of an idea of what a knife's going to look like. You know, it's going to be like that. Sort of like that. And I'm going to go ahead on and cut these out now. And then we're going to take the back side of it, and I'm going to have to cut a groove in the back side. I'm going to lay this at where this knife goes in here. I'm going to lay that at. I'm going to bury a little bit of this flat part of the knife up inside of this part right here. And then we're going to go ahead and epoxy these two pieces together and set their blade in. And once I do that and the epoxy set up, I'm going to take this out to a belt sander, because at first I'm not going to be able to get these curves. I'm just going to kind of cut it out the best I can square. But once the two pieces are glued together, I can take it out to a sander, and between the sander and the file, I can go ahead on and I can get the shape of what, you know, what the handle's going to be. So this is where we're at right now. All right, now I've cut the blocks of horn out, and I got the basic layout on my knife and shit. This one side and this the other side, so it'll go together like that. See? Now, I'm going to go ahead on and clamp these together and go ahead on and grind this shape out. Clamp it together and get this shape grinded out right here. And then we'll have our scales for our knife. It'll kind of be like, if you can see it. Like that. So go ahead and cut that shit out now. Alright, so here's my knife scales. I went on and grinded those out. So that's what they're going to look like. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fuck this what the other side looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to epoxy these two together. And the way I made them was I put the template on it, I clamped them together, and then I took a belt sander and just got my shape, my basic shape like that. Now my knife is going to go in between here eventually. So that's kind of a rough look for the knife right there. But it's not going to have these sharp edges on the handle. Once I get these two pieces right here glued together, and I have my hole and I got my blade so it'll fit in there, then I'm going to take and I'm going to knock these edges down, and I'm going to round this over. And I haven't decided whether I want to put a blade guard on it or not yet. So I'm still thinking about that. So whatever it is, it's going to be something kind of rustic, you know. But this is like some water buffalo horn right here. And these scales right here, these are actually buffalo horn, and they've been notched. So that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to put this is going to be another project down the road for another knife that I haven't got. It's still coming in from Europe. But for right now, we've got their blade and their handles, their scales and stuff. And another thing is I tried to do when I made these was one of them was thicker than the other. So I just took this thick one and laid it down on the belt sander and held it down like that until I got about the same thickness on both sides. So now I'm going to epoxy these two together, and I might drill a couple of holes and put some pins in it, and then to hold it together, and then we'll go ahead on that and round it all off and set our knife blade and see what that looks like. Go from there. All right, so here's a finger guard that I made out of Damascus steel, and that's gonna go on the end of their knife scales and stuff when I epoxy the blade in. So far, these are the pieces we got going on. This is an antique blade that's back from like 1,000 years or more. Here are the scales that I made out of some ram's horn, and I hollowed that out. These go together like that. This will go right here. The knife blade will go through it like that, and it gets inserted into the handle like so. And we're going to put that together with some epoxy and some clamps. And then once everything's all together and the fucking epoxy sets up, then they're going to put it on a belt sander and shape the handle to the contour of the finger guard. So this slot right here was very hard to do. And actually it's got a little bit of a bend in it. So I've been putting it up underneath of this piece on my anvil and I'm trying to bang it out. Also shaping it like that. Utilizing little pieces of the animal. Go ahead and take it like this and put it in here. Take a file, hold one hand on it like that, and got an old file. File it out. So that's really good enough. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assemble all the pieces and put them in some clamps and stuff like that. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix me up some epoxy on a tray. All right, so what we got now is we got our finger guard on and it's lined up. The blade is set. I've got a clamp on both sides of this, and it's a pretty tough epoxy. It's like it's a 5-minute set epoxy, so it doesn't give you a lot of time to work with and stuff. It's very heavy, like 3,000 psi epoxy. Basically now it's just a waiting game. It's a waiting game. As soon as everything all sets up and everything like it's supposed to be, then I'll put it bitch on the grinder and we'll shape them up, and we'll go ahead on and continue our knife video, our restoration video from there. But right now, this is what you got, and that's what it's going to look like until tomorrow when I take the clamps off and start grinding on it. And also I got some brass and I got some steel rod, but I don't think brass would look good on it because you got a Damascus steel finger guard. You've got your 1,500 or over 1,000-year-old silver blade. You've got the black from the water buffalo handle for the scale. So if I do put a couple of pins in it, if I decide to put a couple of pins in it, I think I'm going to put steel ones. And the way I do that is I cut them just a hair longer than what this is, and then I take a little hammer, maybe a hammer just a little smaller than this one, or this one, and then you just take the corner of it and tap, 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 tap on that pin, and what that does is it flares it out and spreads it out, and it kind of compresses it down inside of the handle so that it gives it that little extra hole. After it's all set up, I'm going to grind this buffalo horn down to the contour of the finger guard, and then I'm going to take the rest of the knife handle and I'm going to run it on a belt sander, and I'm going to smooth the sharp edges down off of it. And then after we do that, then I'll do a little bit of file work on it, and then they're going to go ahead on and polish it up, and then that restoration will be done. Then we're going to move on to this knife. This is a pretty cool knife. It's actually got a pig on it. A brass pig pin that goes all the way through, you know, and it's rusty, so I'm going to restore this knife. And then I've got this one. This is a regular butcher knife. It's in right bad shape. You're going to make this back brand new again so it can be used and sharpen it and everything, get the treat the handle and all. And then I've got this thing right here. And if you know what this is, leave a comment what it is. I don't know what it is. It looks something like a sickle. I'm not sure. It's got a little hole in it for holding it up in the air. It's sharp on this edge and on this edge. And it has this for some kind of way to line up inside of a handle. So I got to figure that out. We're going to take this old trades axe right here, which was this is an Indian trade axe. I'm going to clean this up and do that piece right there. Then we're going to do this knife. This is another like a 1,500-year-old knife. It's been in the ground for a long time, and I'm going to ground that down. I know that I could probably make something out of this, but I'm not going to get all the pitting out of it, but I can bring it back down to where we can get an edge and it'll hold an edge. And I'm actually going to try something new on this one, like a metal epoxy, and see if we can use that. Here's another old antique ancient knife, but you see how thin that is? I don't really think it's a whole lot of hope for that. We'll have to see. Maybe we can do something with it. This one right here, which is a really cool shape, it's just too rusted and very thin. So there's not enough metal there to try to take the rust off. By the time you take the rust off, so stuff like that, I think it's better just to keep this like it is. So stay tuned for the rest of our video. I will resume it tomorrow after all the epoxy sets up, and we will finish this project and move on, so we can move on to the next one. All right, so now our blade is on, our clamps are off our handle, and I took a little bit of fine grit sandpaper, some 1500 grit sandpaper, and smoothed the handle out. The blade is fixed, the finger guard is on, and this is the finished product that we have for our 1,000-year-old ancient knife blade that was sitting in the ground for over 1,000 years. That's that side. And that's this side. So if you like this video, subscribe to Get Go TV, and leave a comment in the comment section. If you've got any questions, leave a question in the comment section and I'll answer your question. Or you can email me at peninsulaimp@gmail.com. It's also in the channel description, and I'll answer your question personally if you have any questions. Look at some of the other 320 videos that we've uploaded on how to do things and reviews and whatnots, and join us on our house renovation that we've been doing. We're on like day 27, and also I'll be restoring some more rusty stuff, as I've shown in some of the earlier segments of this video. So subscribe to Get Go TV, and you have a good day, and stay tuned for the next video.